Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Calvin Mackey of STEM Nola, and welcome to STEM Nola at Home, another Thursday of us engaging you right at your home. You know, COVID, we're not celebrating, we are commemorating about the 1 year anniversary of this pandemic. And it was nearly 1 year ago, March 12th, I'll never forget when they shut the nation down. On March 13th, we had 20 people set to get on planes to go do STEM events in 3 different states and 5 different cities, including Barbados. And it's been a year, and we've still been doing these virtual events because everything has been shut down. Look like since we have a vaccine now, things are coming around, and STEM NOLA is planning to have our first in-person event, hopefully starting in July. Maybe it'll be a rocket day or a boat day where we get out and engage out in the outside, socially distanced to make sure that we're safe. But it'd be good to come back again. I say that to say that since the end of April, STEM NOLA has been intentional and consistent about delivering STEM virtually to you. And to all of you who have tuned in, those of you who have started tuning in, I want to say thank you for trusting us and giving us the opportunity to pour into you. I'm excited today because today we're doing something very close to my heart. The topic for today is buoyancy and density. I got a BS in mathematics from Morehouse College, and I got a BS, MS, and PhD in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech. And my favorite subject was fluid mechanics. So with all the rain and the drains and the flooding, that's where I get very excited. I love to see the water going down the street. When it gets to the drain and start swirling, I say that's a tail of vertices. So it's just amazing how just nature and STEM is all around us. And that's why we do what we do. We do what we do because we want you to understand that STEM is everywhere. Everything that you do, everything that you pretty much experience, it is STEM. I have 2 sons, Miles and Mason. They're sophomore in a senior in high school now, but 8 years ago, Miles came up to me and he said he didn't like science anymore because his teacher just talked to the board. We said that can't be. So we started doing STEM in the garage. And parents, we do this because now, working with my own sons, I see the benefit of them understanding basic phenomena in the world in which they live so that they can point out what is STEM and what is happening and how and the why things work so that when they get into the classroom, it's demystified. But more importantly, when they get into the classroom, they're not intimidated by the words that are being used, by the theories that are being put forth, because they understand. In the 21st century, parents, our children are going to have 1 or 3 options. Either they're going to take something, break something, and or make something. And if we don't give them the skills and education to make something, like make a living, make a life, make a difference, that's only going to leave them with the 2 options that we see on the news every night. And we don't want that for anybody. And that's why we say STEM education and STEM engagement and STEM exposure must be intentional and it must be consistent. There are some young people who've gotten on here every week. And I know that you've grown because you've been intentional about learning and you've experienced this STEM engagement consistently. That means you've been time on task. And when you do time on task, guess what? You learn, you grow, you get stronger. So we want to say thank you. Now in the 21st century, you're either training your kids from the neck up or you're training your kids from the neck down. And parents, if you're training your kids from the neck down, their competition in the 21st century will be the automatic machine. And you better believe right now during COVID, many corporations are turning to automation and automating their processes so that the next pandemic or the next time somebody gets sick or the next time there's a catastrophe, their systems and their processes won't go down. I have before me right here a humanoid. A humanoid is a robot that tries to behave or act like a human. This humanoid name is Alpha and is made by the Ubitech Robotics, the #1 commercial robotic build in America. And this robot can mimic human behavior. Alpha can do push-ups, just like you when you do them. Alpha can show off. Alpha gets up slowly, just like me. And like Beyonce, Alpha can dance. There you go. Give it up for Alpha. So no matter what you decide to do in the 21st century, technology will impact it in some type of way. But if you think you're going to compete against the machine and win, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. This robot doesn't care about Mardi Gras, doesn't care about the Super Bowl, doesn't care about the Saints, doesn't care about COVID, not going to get sick. The robot works 24/7, 365 days a year. And as an engineer, that's our goal. How do we create a process and keep it going and ongoing? And now with automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, we actually have machines learning and getting better. So if we're training ourselves from the neck down, this is your competition and you're going to lose. So therefore, we got to train ourselves from the neck up so that we can control the robots and the robots do not control us. Now, that's why we do what we do, and that's why we're here. And today our topic is buoyancy and density, the basics of fluid mechanics. And before we move on to our volunteer, I just want to recognize some of the participants from last week. My friend Kaylee from Abeka Academy in Lafayette, thank you for participating once again. You have been intentional and consistent. Javen Moore for Kernersville, North Carolina, thank you for participating and sending a picture. Remember, you all send your picture to webinar@stemnola.com. And to John Patrick Flanagan in Dutchtown and Geismar, thank you for sending a picture. Keep pushing. Now, next up, I want to introduce our volunteer for the day, our professional for the day, parents. At STEM NOLA, we've created a high-functioning STEM community. A high-functioning STEM community is child-centered, so we focus on the K-12 kids, adult-governed, so the adults in our neighborhood are our college students. That's why we pay them, and then elder rule. And that's why we invite professionals to come on. So in one setting, your child get vertical mentoring. They get to see college students doing amazing things, but they also get to meet professionals in the area doing great things. And today I'd like to introduce to you Elgin Woodside, who works for Occidental Chemical, and he has a BS in mechanical engineering, from Tuskegee University. As a matter of fact, since he went to Tuskegee, that's why I wore my Morehouse hat, just so he understand who I'm representing. We used to go down to Tuskegee, Columbus, Georgia every year and watch Morehouse beat Tuskegee into the ground, so I just had to let him know I'm representing for the house, but also acknowledge the fact that Tuskegee is one of the top historically Black college engineering schools in the nation, and I'm happy to have Elgin Woodside presenting today. Mr. Woodside.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to everybody in STEM NOLA. Thank you to the parents for getting your kids here. Thank you for the kids for participating and investing in yourself. And first off, I just want to tell you guys who I am. My name is Elgin Woodside. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Like Calvin said, I went to Tuskegee, Golden Tigers. Let's do it. I also played baseball there. So we actually never lost to Morehouse in a baseball series. So I guess I got Calvin there. But yeah, so I just want to stress how much importance it is on investing in yourself and your education, because the world isn't getting any slower. Everything's just speeding up. You gotta get ahead of the game, and you guys, by being here, you're showing me that you want to be ahead of the game. So when I was young, when I was your age, I was also engaged in a lot of engineering programs, science programs, math programs. I went to Math Star at Xavier University, also BioStar in an engineering camp at Xavier University, and those events really is what catapulted my love for engineering and STEM in general. So I just want to say thank you for taking this time out and listening to me and listening to Calvin, because he has a great heart. They have a great message, and they're trying to instill some great things in your kids. So my example for the day, I work at Occidental Chemical Corporation. That's a manufacturing plant over in Geismar, Louisiana. We produce chemicals like chlorine, EDC, which is used for creating construction materials. Also, we purify water with our chlorine. So one example of buoyancy in this matter will be, so picture a 20-foot structure, and we injecting a bunch of chemicals into it, chlorine, ethylene, different products. And you heat it up to about 1,000 degrees. So this reaction will separate and you send it to different vessels. And you have to cool this reaction down. That way you can put it in your storage tanks. So in order to do this, you have to use a heat exchanger to reduce the heat that you apply to it in the process. So in the heat exchanger, you'll basically send the product through some tubes and you'll send cooling water through the other side to cool the tubes down. And whenever you put cold and hot together, what do you get? You get steam. So an example of buoyancy will be in a steam trap. So whenever you get the steam, it starts to condense and produce liquid. When this liquid builds up, it can cause a lot of pressure inside the heat exchanger, and it could cause it to rupture. So you have to install a steam trap to get rid of the condensate and the steam. So how this steam trap works is this little small device about the size of a basketball. It has a small golf ball size mechanism inside of it. It holds down a lever. Whenever the condensate goes in, the steam, it will cool and it will turn into water. Whenever that water begins to rise, the buoyancy in this ball will begin to rise too, which will lift the lever and which will drain the water that was backed up into the system. So without buoyancy in this matter, you are in danger of rupturing your vessel and also harming people in the process and having a chemical release in the environment and causing a lot of trouble and adverse things in the community. So that's one example of buoyancy at a chemical plant. Every aspect of engineering is very important. I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. Personally, I'm a math guy. I like thermodynamics as well. I really like calculus. I'm into financials and things like that. So I just say, to conclude, I just want each and every one of you guys to find something that you're passionate about. Find one part of engineering that you just want to dive in and go all into. Like Calvin said, he was really into fluid dynamics, and that's why he has such a love for it. And whenever you love something, it's going to stick to you, and it's gonna mean more to you than just a subject, and you can change the world that way. So in my case, in addition to being an engineer, I also have my own businesses. I have a production company, and I also invest in real estate. And I love to do like the taxes and all that stuff and the financials with that. So I would say just make sure you have your mind open to everything and always be willing to learn. And I just want to thank you guys again for coming out. And the sky's the limit. Always keep going.
Hey, Elgin, don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. Don't run now. Where's Elgin? You still on there?
Yep.
No, yeah, I got you. Now, what did you say? Y'all never lost to Morehouse.
Nah, not in baseball, man. We used to whoop them.
Y'all must have been shooting marbles or something.
Nah, man, it was Morehouse, man. I'm telling you. I hit a couple home runs. You know, I hit a couple home runs.
There's something called Google, bro.
Google it. Google me. You gonna see it.
Are you from New Orleans?
Yep, I'm from New Orleans.
What high school?
I went to Thomas Jefferson over in Gretna.
You went to Thomas Jefferson?
Yep.
My sons go to Patrick Taylor. We killed Thomas Jefferson every chance we get.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's a tough one.
You know what? I thought I didn't like you. Then you said you like thermodynamics. I said, oh, man, I like that dude. I like him.
Yeah, I like thermodynamics a lot.
Hey, good, man. Thank you. Hey, let's get together soon. I'd like to meet you.
Yeah, stay in touch. Always keep me in the loop with whatever you got going on. I'd love to help.
Yeah, my son is a senior. He's saying he's going to go to Morehouse or Howard. He go to Howard, he can't come back home ever again. So the choice is his.
Man, that's not right. Don't do him like that, man. Don't do.
But he wants to major in mechanical engineering, so I want you to meet him.
Oh yeah, that's good. Mechanical, that's the best one in my opinion. Always go with what you love, but mechanical, man, so diverse.
All right, great. Pleasure, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. Now, scholars, Elgin gone now, but he was lying. They didn't beat us no every year he played baseball. And you notice he didn't say anything about football, but I'm not going to go there. So I'm glad we had that exchange because I want you to see engineers are just regular people that work real hard and do what we got to do. Love sports, love people, things like that. So, there are myths and images about the way engineers are, and those are myths and images. That's one thing we do in STEM NOLA. We demystify all of those myths, okay? Now, next up, we're going to have our coordinator for operations, Lamaya Hall. Lamaya has a BS in chemistry from Xavier University, and she just finished her MPH, Master's in Public Health from Xavier. And we're very proud of Lamaya. I met Lamaya when she was a sophomore. She walked into my office and was looking for a job. And one of the best decisions I ever made in STEM NOLA was hiring Lamaya because she'd been here right by my side, thong in my side most of the time, getting stuff done. But we're proud of what she has accomplished for us and for you. And we're looking forward to her doing great things in the next phase in her life. And Lamaya Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. Hello, everyone. Let me take off my mask. My name is Lamaya Hall. Like Dr. Mackey said, I'm the operations coordinator here at STEM NOLA. Been here like 5 years. I love it. It gets better every year, to be honest. Um, I went to Xavier. I'm originally from Alabama. I went to Xavier. I have a BS. I have my degrees in biology, but I have a minor in chemistry and Spanish. And then I've received my MPH, my master's in public health from Xavier. And now I'm applying for medical school. So let's go on ahead and get on with the day. Today we're doing buoyancy and density. There's always really cool and fun experiments to do with buoyancy and density. So this is one of my favorite days. So let's start off with the agenda. So the first thing we're going to look at is our vocabulary terms. Then we're going to go over our objectives for today. Then we're going to go through our activity questions. These are questions first I'm just going to show you. And after we do our water displacement and our saltwater buoyancy, we'll actually answer those questions and review them. So let's start with our vocab. Our first vocab word is density. Density is how close together the molecules are, like in a substance, right? Or how much mass that substance has in a given space. Our next vocab word is buoyancy. This is that upward force that a fluid exerts on an object less dense than itself, right? So think about an object that's floating. That means that the buoyant force is stronger than that gravity or the other force pointing down. So that means that it's going to float. Archimedes' principle, we're actually going to look at this when we look at displacement. So that states that the weight of an object submerged in a fluid is equal to the weight of the displaced fluid. So basically, when you put an object in, the water level moves up because that water needs to go somewhere, and that weight of that object is equivalent to the weight of that fluid that's being moved. Our last vocab word is volume. This is a measure of the amount of space an object takes up. So when a cylinder is submerged in the water, it pushes the water out of the way. And if you calculate that change in the water level, you have found the volume of the water that's displaced. So today there'll be a couple questions popping up just to keep you guys engaged. Make sure you're paying attention. Our first question is, which of these can buoyancy not act on? Mm-hmm. Which one of these can buoyancy not act on? All right. Okay, about 50%. Correct. The correct answer is, what does that say? Jello? Oh, concrete. Sorry. Correct answer is concrete. The buoyant force cannot act on concrete because it's not a fluid. So buoyancy works on fluids. All right. So our next thing we're going to look at is our objectives. These are our purpose, like our reason, our goals, all of that, all of the above for being here today. So we want you guys to understand the meaning of the terms density, buoyancy, Archimedes principle, and volume, and apply them to our projects today. We also want you to examine water displacement and saltwater buoyancy as well. Our next question, what are we experimenting with today? Rockets, wind, or buoyancy and density? Give you guys a couple more seconds. That is correct. We are experimenting with buoyancy and density. So let's look at these questions of the day. Like I said earlier, we're just going to look over these questions right now. Then we will go over them actually after, we'll go over them and answer them at the end of today's session. So our first question is, what is buoyancy? Our second question is, what happens when an object is less dense than the water it's in? So what happens when the object is less dense than water? What happens when the object is more dense than the water? So let's just think about that. Think about that while we're doing our experiments today, and we'll answer these questions later. So let's start with today's first experiment. So our first experiment is water displacement. First things first, I'm going to go over the materials. Then I'll read the science behind it as you're gathering these materials. So the first thing you need is a cup. It can be plastic. It can be a glass, whatever. Just a cup. Go on ahead and fill it about halfway with water. You'll also need some string and something heavy that you could tie to the string. If you have a toy car, if you don't have like hex nuts or something like that, you could tie like a toy car to the string or something heavier that'll fit in your glass that you can attach to the string. So we have like large hex nuts and washers over here. So as you're gathering these materials, I'm going to go over the science behind it. So water displacement occurs like when an object is immersed, which means like it's just dipped all the way down into the fluid, pushing it out of its way and taking its place. So the displacement method always allows science to measure the volume of a irregularly shaped object by measuring the volume of the water that's moved up. So basically what we're going to do is look at where our water levels are at the beginning, put a heavy object in there, and then look at the distance between and determine the volume from there. So when an object is submerged in the water, its weight decreases by amount equal to the buoyant force. This method was discovered by Archimedes, which is a Greek mathematician and a scientist that lived 287 BCE to 212 BCE. So basically, just Archimedes is just really the name of a man. Displacement is just a scientific concept that he came up with, basically showing that the volume of an object, the weight of the object is equal to the volume displaced. So let's go on ahead and begin. The first thing, I already have I have like this long glass thing, like a cylinder, halfway filled with water. I'm going to drop a couple drops of food coloring in mine, just so that you'll be able to see the change in the color of the water. You'll be able to see it move above. I'm using a ruler to stir just because. So the first thing is first, we're going to take our glass of water, and I'm going to use a piece of tape. If you have a piece of tape or like a marker or something, washable markers will wash off your glasses. So if that's cool, parents, if you don't mind your children putting washable markers on your glass. So I'm just going to take a small piece of tape and I'm just going to put it on the front of my glass where my line meets, like where the top of my water line is. I'm going to turn this way so I can actually get a good look. All right. So now you see my green line. That green line here is where my water line is. And I just put a small piece of tape. Yours doesn't have to be that long. I just wanted to cover the whole front so you're able to see. The next thing I am going to do is grab a piece of string and grab my hex nuts. That's okay. You can have like a toy car. If you have a toy car, that'll work. Something just heavier. And I'm going to put actually string along like 4 or 5 onto my string just so that the displacement will be large enough for you all to see. If you're at home and you have something like a heavy little toy car, make sure it's not like a RC car, like a remote control car. Make sure it's like a little Hot Wheels car or something, or something that you have that's pretty heavy that can fit into your cup. So I'm gonna do 5 of them. And all I'm going to do, I just line them up on here, and I'm just gonna take them and tie them in a knot. Parents, you may have to help get this tied because tying a knot with some string is not always easy. Just like that. So as you're getting to this point, I'm going to basically do a recap. So the first thing I did, I added a little food color into my water, which you don't have to at all. Then I put a piece of tape that aligns with the top of my tape, aligns with the top of my water line. And I just put it around just so that you guys will be able to see. You can just use a little bit of tape. You can use a marker to line it. All of that'll work. Then I took something heavy like my hex nuts, put them on my string and tied it off. So what I'm going to do next is what they call submerge, right? So that means I'm going to drop my hex nuts into my water, and let's watch this water line. So I'm going to squat down and watch my water line increase. So let me pull it out one more time. Y'all saw my water line went down. Let's see one more time. So as you see, my water line increased, right? So what's happening is that the weight of these hex nuts, the water has to go somewhere because now the hex nuts are taking up some place, some space in this container. So that water has to do something. And so what it has to do is actually move up. So the weight of the weight of the hex nut is equal to that small increase in the volume of our water. So that's how he was saying that people measure odd objects that are hard to weigh or figure out their weight. So that is Archimedes' displacement. So this one you can always continue to play with. You can work your measurements. You can try different objects, see if objects are heavier than others if you don't know. See if objects are lighter than others if you don't know. And see how much water it takes up. See how much space it takes up and the increase in the volume of the water. So our next experiment is saltwater buoyancy. I really like this experiment because it's cool, because you see something go from one thing to another, and I like that. So I'm going to go over the materials that we are going to use today, and then we'll go over the science behind it. So first things first, we need 2 plastic cups. You need some salt. You need some water. And you need an object. It says such as a gear. You can use an object like a cork will work as well. Because a cork, it kind of hovers, and then it actually ends up really floating. Um, so let's go over the science behind it. So the science behind it is buoyancy. So buoyancy is that upward force, right, that exerts on the object less dense. So buoyancy points upward. Then you have another force actually that points down on the object, which is gravity. So if buoyancy is greater than gravity, then your object is going to float, right? So for an object below, for an object to be buoyant, which means that it's going to float, it must have less density than than what? All right, for an object to be buoyant and float, that means that it has to be less dense than the water, right? So, or the fluid that it's floating in. For an object to be more buoyant, like for it to be more dense, then it's going to sink to the bottom of our water. So our buoyant force is actually going to be less than gravity. Gravity is going to be greater than that buoyant force, right? So the object that's less dense is going to float. The object that's more dense is going to sink. So whether an object sinks or floats in a liquid depends mainly on two factors. That's the density and the buoyancy. And density is like how close and compact the molecules are together in a substance, and how much mass is in that substance in that given space that you have. So what we're going to look at, we're actually going to change the buoyant force in water by using salt. So let's start with that today. So I'm actually going to show you on this one first. I have gears today. These are little gears that we get here at STEM Nola. They're cute, they're fun. If you turn one, the other one turns. So as you can see, when I put it in the water, and I actually, if I push down a little bit, it may sink a little bit. Like you see that red one, it's actually starting to sink. So that means, so let's look at less dense and more dense, right? So obviously the blue one is less dense because it's floating, and that red one is more dense because it's sinking. So that means that the buoyant force on that blue one is large because that force is pushing upward. So it would be a big arrow, and gravity would be like a smaller arrow because it's staying on top. Let's think about the bottom one. Our buoyant force arrow would be small, and then gravity would be a lot bigger because it's actually pushing it all the way to the bottom of the water. So how do you think we can change our water? So we can add a little salt. And when we add a little salt, that'll actually change the density of our water. So the first thing we're going to do is just take your salt. It may take, depending on your object that you have, it may take more salt than others. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of salt and stir. And as you can see, my red one is already trying to float. But I'm going to stir a little bit with my ruler. Stir and keep stirring until a lot of your salt is gone. Yeah, thanks, Barry. That's the word I was looking for, salt. I'm going to add a little more. Keep stirring. Also, if you use warmer water, it's easier to use warmer water because the salt dissolves faster. It doesn't have to be extremely hot, but if you have warm water, that'll work as well. Room temperature water will work. All right. So now let's test this red gear. Remember, at the beginning, our red gear, it sank. Still sinking a little bit. Still sinking. We need some more salt. Stir in some more salt. The more salt, my hand's gonna make this overflow. The more salt you put in here, the more dense your water will get. because now your water molecules are locking with salt molecules. So let's pour a little more salt. That was a lot of more, but it's okay. And continue to stir. So it may take a couple times for you to figure out exactly how much salt that you're going to need, just depending on which object you're using. So it's okay to keep testing it. It's okay to keep stirring, keep pouring, and keep stirring. Mom may be mad because she may be out of salt, but we're here for science. We are here for science. Just remind mom and dad, we're scientists today from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And look at that. Now our red gear, it is floating. Now our water is more dense than our gear. Our gear is less dense than our water, which means it's literally saying the same thing. And now it floats. So now that buoyant force of the water has become really, really strong, strong enough to push the gear all the way up. And then gravity is smaller now. So now it's floating. So remember, when that object is less dense than the fluid it is in, it is going to float. When that object is more dense than the fluid that it's in, then it's going to sink. So buoyancy is that force, that upward force that presses on, that upward force that happens when you put an object in a fluid, right? So water, that buoyant force here, it would be having like a big arrow here, and then this ruler would be like your buoyant force, and the gravity would be this small object here. This one's bigger than this one, so it's gonna float. Say it's opposite. This is your buoyant force. This is like your gravity. This one, your buoyant force is smaller than your gravity, the force from gravity, so it's gonna sink. So that's why I like buoyancy and density so much, because it can be manipulated. It's something that actually takes time, a lot of testing as well, to get things right. And that's what I like about science. So let's go over those questions we had earlier. What is buoyancy? Our first question is, what is buoyancy? Give you guys a couple more seconds to submit those poll answers. We have a few more people. That is correct. Buoyancy is that upward force a fluid exerts on an object when it's in water or like a fluid. Our next question, what happens when an object is less dense than the water it's in? What happens to an object when it's less dense than the water? Does it sink, does it float, or does it not move? When it's less dense. When it's less dense, that means it has a huge buoyant force. Yes, the object does float. That is correct. Our last question, what happens to an object that is more dense than the water it is in? What happens when the object is more dense? It doesn't move, it sinks, or does it float? Give you guys a couple more seconds. That is correct. The object sinks, so gravity is greater than that buoyant force. Perfect. So, does anybody have any questions? Okay, Dr. Mackey, there's a question up here for you. Yep. Yep. Thank you guys so much for participating. Dr. Mackey's going to come answer some questions.
Hey, let's give it up for Lamaya. Thank you, Lamaya. Thank you, Lamaya. A couple of questions. Somebody want to know how much does the robot cost? This is alpha. This is a old version, and we hope to have a newer version. And it all depends. We have one which I can't find anymore because it has a lot of pieces to it. I don't know where it is. But the album, all of them cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000, like this. There are some like this with artificial intelligence that costs as high as $10,000. There's another one that I'm looking at that specifically have been programmed for kids with autism, and it can sense and respond, and those are about 15,000 each. So what I love about this one is that you can program it and get immediate reaction. Now, parents, when we grew up, there's something called rock'em sock'em robots, right? Rock'em sock'em, you used to fight the things, you hit it, boop, 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 boop. You actually can fight these. I mean, you don't want to fight them, but they're gladiators, right? So you could take these, and there's a platform on an app where you can punch and kick. The other one actually plays soccer. It can stick its arm out and it can do a split. But I stopped using that one because there's just so many parts, and I spent more time trying to work on the thing. But anyway, hopefully we'll be selling these soon at a very discounted rate because we're trying to become a distributor so we can get them to our family at another rate. His name is Alpha, A-L-P-H-A. Someone asked a question. They said, are people ever afraid that robots will control us because we made them too intelligent? That is a ethical conversation that we're having about how far do we go with this artificial intelligence. When you look at Watson, the robot or the brain that IBM has built, that's amazing. That is amazing at learning, can beat the greatest chess player and things like that. But that's just the machine's ability to compute. But now, since we're getting into like Boston Dynamics with these robots that actually move, dance, and with artificial intelligence learn, the question is, how far do we push the envelope? As a scientist, I don't think that we should be afraid of that, because I don't think the evolution of machine learning would ever get to that point to jump over and match human learning. And there's always fail safes. So that really doesn't bother me. But from an ethical standpoint, the question becomes, how far do we push the biotechnology? How far do we push the artificial intelligence? And when do we begin to cross lines where humans are actually in danger? Now, is it possible for someone to take a robot and do something to cause harm? The answer is absolutely yes. And that's why, parents, my background is I went to Morehouse College and I got a liberal arts background. And you have a lot of people that's very intelligent. And Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, President Emeritus at Morehouse, said he's very concerned about man. He says he's concerned about man because there's no proof that when we train a man mind, we train his heart. And you got a lot of people that are only getting their mind trained, and we're not training their heart. That's why I always say we got to train our heart and our mind, because we got to keep human being and human life centered as the most important thing in whatever we design and build. So that was a great question. Sorry I went long with it, but that's just where we are. So next month, we have again, send pictures to webinar@stemnola.com. Send your pictures so we can highlight you. We highlight you on our Facebook page too. And we send it to our sponsors so we can keep doing this. But in April, we got 6 STEM Saturdays coming up. And for the most part, they're going to be on the physics of sound. You're going to make your own xylophone. They didn't bring a xylophone up here for me to show you. So you make your own xylophone, and you're going to learn about the physics of sound. When we do it in person, it's an amazing day because we help the young people build speakers, and they plug the speaker into their phones, and they begin to rock. So April 3rd, we have STEM Grambling for everybody in Northern Louisiana. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Registration is open now for STEM Grambling. Then in St. Tammany Parish That's the North Shore of Louisiana, North Shore of New Orleans, St. Tammany Parish, Tangible Hood Parish, you might be able to slide in. Washington Parish, you may be able to slide in. You didn't hear that from me, but because this is just for St. Tammany Parish residents. So if you know somebody in St. Tammany Parish, tell them there's a free STEM Saturday on April 3rd. Registration is now open. Then we have, what is this? The Department of Defense STEM Saturday in New Orleans, and that's open to everybody. As a matter of fact, registration is open now for, I think it's open now, for STEM NOLA STEM Saturday on Xylophone. Now, if you register for the wrong place, Ms. Keelan kicks you out. So don't get mad if you register for Grambling and you live in Arkansas and you get kicked out. But STEM NOLA is wide open for everybody. We're going to do the physics of sound in North Minneapolis in partnership with Summit Academy OIC. So Minneapolis, we're coming for our third STEM Saturday. We look forward to doing a STEM Fest live in Minneapolis, I believe in September. So keep the lookout. STEM Baton Rouge, we are going to do a chemistry day on April 17th. It will be sponsored by Shell Oil, and we'll be doing chemistry and nanoscience, STEM Baton Rouge. And then STEM Gulf Coast. If you live along the Gulf Coast, I'm talking about Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, Gulfport, Biloxi, Mississippi, Moss Point, Mobile, Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Florida, all the way to Panama City Beach, Florida. You can see I spend a lot of time on the coast. So if you live on the Gulf Coast, this would be our first event for Department of Defense, a National Defense Education Program sponsorship for the Gulf Coast. So tell all your friends in Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida that we are coming, and we are building capacity in all of these communities so all kids can have access to STEM. There you go, people. Hope y'all had a great day. And I hope to see you all in our STEM Saturdays. And we're getting excited and getting revved up because we're going to be going back live here soon. It's been a tough year, and I'm glad you all persevered. Glad you all stuck with it. And for the people who've been here, I don't think there's any learning loss because we've been learning from each other. So y'all have a great day. Have a great weekend. Tomorrow I'm going fishing, so hopefully I'll have some pictures next week of some big fish. The weather been crazy, but a bad day on a boat fishing better than a good day in the office. So I'm gonna try to go get me some fish tomorrow. Y'all, be looking for the fish. I need a big red fish to bake and eat. Y'all have a good one. Take care. I'm Dr. Mackey. Bye-bye.